The Dime 3-2, otherwise known as Dollar, is one of the best defenses every single year in Madden and is no different in this year's game. Now, if you like playing lockdown coverage, having good bend but don't break pressure that can get pressure against block running back and get really crazy loop pressure, there's sometimes the defensive tackle could come in completely free. I think that the Dollar defense is for you. We're going to be diving into not only some of my favorite ways to blitz out of this defense, we're also going to be diving into some of my favorite ways to stop the run out of this. Great red zone setups that are going to help you get stops down in the red zone where it counts. We're also going to show you this glitchy disengage blitz where you can get defensive tackle pressure in game, depending on the types of pass pro, and really just kind of in general, one of the better ways to play defense in this game. The cool part about Dollar is it's a bend but don't break defense that really is predicated on playing good coverage with good switch sticks, as well as having a nice blitz that puts your opponent on a timer and doesn't just let them have all day in the pocket. Now, if you guys want to learn my entire Dollar defense, we're going to cover some of it here, but you can get my full version of this defense in our school community, and I will put a link in the description to that site. It's only $10 to become a member, and it's going to get you access to literally every single thing that I know about both Madden and college football. So if you are looking to take your game to the next level, I'd encourage you to join our school community today. Again, that link will be down in the description below. This is how to do the Send 4 loop blitz out of Dollar. Specifically, this is the A-gap loop out of Dollar. Now, what you want to do in your coach adjustments here is you want to have auto flip defensive play call off, defensive motion response disabled, option read key, we're going to put that onto conservative, pitch key is going to be on aggressive, read and pass key are both going to be on conservative. At the bottom here, we're going to put the safety depth on close and the safety width on pinch. Now, the way that this defense is basically going to be set up is you want this linebacker here on the right side to be your most agile, best change of direction player that you have on your team. This is your looper. Now, if you're playing ultimate team or franchise, you want to have your best 3 pass rushers down here at the defensive line with typically double or nothing and maybe an additional instant rebate or BOGO attached to that double or nothing to trigger better shed animations. Now, you're going to be coming out in one of 2 plays for this. The first one we're going to use is going to be the SS Zone Blitz. You don't need to really do any shell feature or anything for this. And all you're going to do is you're just going to slant your defensive line here to the right side. And then you can do whatever you want with your coverage. You can put the safety in whatever zone that you want. You can shade underneath. And what you're going to see is that this will create a kind of glitchy type of disengage or loop from the defensive tackle or the looper. So if we look at the instant replay here, what we're basically accomplishing is you're going to see, and this happens a little bit different depending on the protection, depending on situation, depending on hovering, depending on a lot of factors. But effectively what's going to happen a lot of times is this right here. So as you see this defensive tackle, he kind of glitches through the center. And if you have a faster guy there, sometimes he'll just come in completely clean. Not going to happen every single time, but sometimes it does happen. And that's enough to kind of put your opponent on a timer with your defense. So again, the setup is to slant your defensive line to the right-hand side. If you want to shoot the run or anything like that, you can kind of stand over in this area. A lot of times they'll shoot the run. And there you see the glitchy defensive tackle disengage that can happen with this defense. I'm going to show you another kind of hover. You could stand in this little area right here, and sometimes that loop will come in a little bit better there. Just depends a little bit on how they pick it up, what protection they're actually going to be using for this blitz as well. For example, and make sure that you crash right. If you don't crash right, the blitz doesn't work. But you can, as you see there, we're getting that kind of glitchy disengage and loop type of angle that is going to make this blitz more effective. And then the other thing with this is if you want to contain to try to keep the quarterback in the pocket, you can certainly do that. And sometimes when you contain, it makes the loop a little bit better, in my opinion, because you get some kind of different, just a little different in terms of how they're going to pick it up, get this guard to kick out a little bit more, and then that'll make that loop a little bit better. So anyways, that is the Send 4 A-gap from SS Zone Blitz. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways in which you can run this defense. The second way that you could run this defense is you can basically cross-apply everything that I just told you from the play cover 3 buzz match. What this does is it saves you an adjustment. You don't have to put the safety in a zone. He's already in a zone, and you're in a cover 3 defense. And as you see, it kind of creates that disengage that you're looking for. The only adjustment you need to do with this is you need to slant your defensive line to the right. So just slant your defensive line to the right. That'll change the blitz angle. And you see that this thing can be pretty decent, right? Now, overall, I think for whatever reason, I just feel like SS Zone is a little bit better, but you can do whatever it is that you would like with that. And then the only other thing for the 4-man A-gap is if you wanted to, you could manually move this guy over like this and QB contain, and this will create kind of the same thing, but I find that this is a little bit less effective in terms of actually creating that cross type of loop. And then you could do the same thing here on the right side. So if I wanted to send it this way, I can move this guy over here, right? I'd probably pass commit with this defense, but effectively, as you see, he kind of loops just like that. So anyway, it's just a slight tweak on how to run the defense, but it can make this blitz, make it look like some of the other blitzes in the dollar defense. But in general, we're just trying to get that A-gap to loop consistently to give some semblance of a timer so that they have to get the ball out in a reasonable amount of time, and they don't just have all day to be able to pass. And when you get that disengage, you are going to scream and get great pressure at your opponent. This is one of the best coverage shells in the game for Bunch X Nasty. It's one of my favorite ways to kind of start to attempt to defend this formation. Bunch X Nasty is a really good formation. They're going to be able to move the ball, but there are some things we can do to limit their effectiveness. Now, what you want to make sure is just make sure that your auto flip defensive play call is off. That is really, really important in this defense. And then we're going to be in SS zone blitz. So what we're going to do is we are going to slant our defensive line to the right side. We're going to hook curl before we do that, we're going to shade underneath, and then we're going to hook curl this bunch side safety, and then we're going to put our user in a hook zone as well. So this is kind of what the defense looks like at its core and the why behind it. So the why behind these zones. So the hard flat on the left side, you pretty much have to do that to defend spacing switch. If you do not do that, they will throw spacing switch on you. But if you have a hard flat there, they're not going to be able to throw that route. This outside third is really just a zone that we're going to switch stick onto if we see like a flat and a corner route or anything like that. It's going to handle any seam streaks well, anything like that. The main thing that we want to do with our user here is we want to switch stick onto this third and kind of run him into the middle of the field. If we don't do this, then I'll show you there are some throws that will be open as a result. So the main throw that you have to worry about with this defense is really this one. It would be something like this. And what they're basically looking to do is hit this seam right in that little pocket, okay? Now, that's the major vulnerability of the coverage shell. So what we want to do to kind of help it a little bit is we're going to switch stick onto this guy and run him to this position. What's nice about this is by doing that, and all you're going to do is at the snap of the ball, you're just going to switch stick up by flicking the right joystick up, run him into position, and then you can switch stick really to whoever you want. So essentially what this does, though, is this really bluffs them a little bit, especially when they're on this side of the field. Now, if they're on the other side of the field, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But effectively, right, ball is going to snap, you run him into position, and then I can switch back to the hook curl. So what that does is it kind of baits them a little bit, and you'll get interceptions on people that will blindly throw it. If let's say they're trying to throw something like this, a lot of people like this play right now, be something like this, motion HB choice. You're going to be in a pretty good spot to handle this because you're going to run this middle third into position here. And then really you can also switch stick onto the outside third to run him back into position as well. So effectively here, we'll snap the ball, run him into position, and then you're able, to kind of essentially switch stick around. So this is a very, very, very basic coverage, but what makes it really good is it's really, people don't expect it, right? People don't expect it. And then also The other thing that makes it really good is it does a pretty good job against like this running back, like a setup like this. Let me show you real quick. So a setup like this, for example, will do a really good job because we're already on the middle third. And when we run him back and realize there's no streak, right? Running back, oh, there's no streak. Oh, I can just take this. And then I'm done. I'm basically done at that point, right? If they playmaker, okay, but you're still in a really, really good spot to be able to handle most of what they want to do from a bunch look. And then the same thing is kind of true here. So like, let's do a motion cross post setup. So if they want to try to hit this corner route, the one thing I will say is you can quarter this outside third and it will defend the corner a little better. But in general, I don't think you necessarily need to do that. But if you think about it, right, a play like this, where we realistically have to guard, all we have to do is switch stick to the third, run him in a position, and then switch stick to the other third. So it would look like this. Switch stick here, I see corner, I go right there, and I've got him. This is one of the most popular plays in the game, and I'm able to play it pretty well without even necessarily having any pressure. So let me show you this replay real quick and just kind of show you the pattern of this. But this is, kind of the coverage that I think, just basic coverage. You want to make them have to beat this. But as you see here, by running here, now this throw, is it open? Yes. But they're seeing my user right there, and this guy's going to break on the ball as well. So it's not like, it's a tight throw. Like, it's not a super open, like, it looks open from that angle, but he's running himself into coverage. And also got to realize, like, my user's running right there. So typically people will just get away from the user. They'll say, oh, you're in the middle field, I'm going to go to this route right here. And as you see, this is a very easy switch to switch down and take the corner route away. So anyways, this is the basic cover 3 shell for bunch. For this coverage shell against bunch, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using the SS zone blitz. You want to make sure that you have auto flip off. And this is going to primarily be a shell that we use when the bunch is to the right side of the screen, okay? You can obviously create this shell if they flip it. It's not that hard. You just got to go through your adjustments, right? But it's really good when you get this look right here. So essentially, what's the purpose of this coverage shell? So the purpose of this coverage shell is to make it easier to defend any kind of flood concept to the bunch side. And it's also still going to do a good job against the flats on both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by simply shading our coverage. We're going to slant to the right to set up our blitz. We're going to shade underneath to create hard flats here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to outside third this bunch side safety. Okay. Now from there, all you're going to do is you're going to hard flat your outside bunch corner, and then you are going to curl flat your bunch slot corner. So why would we do this? The reason we want to do this is because the curl flat on the bunch side specifically is going to be able to do a good job if we stem him up one. So the way you do that, you're going to double tap Y or triangle. You're going to select the icon of that slot corner. You're going to hold L1 and you're going to hit up once on the D-pad. So you see, it makes this curl flat deeper. It makes it play a deeper depth. And then we have this 3-rec. Now, if you want to make the 3-rec a hook, you can do that, be my guest. But effectively, the point of this is to take away the sideline flood, right? So you don't want to call this if they're not running a lot of corner routes is what I'm trying to get at. So this will stop pretty much any sideline flood to the bunch side typically. So that would mean, something like this, that you'll get this sum. So you see here that curl flat do a really good job of being able to handle that. And then the guy, the outside third is going to kind of get over the top pretty well. Now, the other little thing that you could do with this in terms of like how to make this a little better is you could do this real quick. Let me just give you the slot fade. This is a coverage shell that you could send 3 on. Why? Because you have a lot of coverage on the field. So what we could do is we could just globally hook curl our linebackers, right? And then if we wanted to shade underneath, we could shade underneath, outside third, hard flat, and then curl flat the guy, and then stem him up one time. So it looks just like this. So why is this a good cover shell to send 3 on? because you have the entire sideline defended on the right. So the only thing they can really do is run something over the left side. So you see if they run a combo like this, we basically don't have to do anything. The one thing I still like to do is I always like to click onto this guy, run him into position, and then be back on the hook curl. But as you see, every kind of sideline flood is going to be defended. The same thing is true. Let's say they do like a Y flat goal line type route, like spacing switch, and they do this, something like that, right? These short corners and things, you're still going to be in a really good spot. So I think the more I look at this, I'd rather have the double hook curls and just send 3 on this. But if you want to blitz, you can blitz. And then the other thing is, like, let's say he's blitzing, right? What you would want to do with your user is I would probably hover over this area. This would be in a situation where I would do that. Main reason why is because the main purpose of the coverage is to stop any flood to the bunch side, and this will stop every single thing. So the main thing you have to do is basically worry about the backside of this play. That's where you're vulnerable. So you have to worry a little bit about that. But in general, overall, this is going to do a really good job against, like I said, any kind of flood. Another thing that we're seeing a lot of people do now is they're doing this kind of double, like something like this, and kind of essentially trying to roll out. You're still going to be in a good spot here. At the end of the day, it comes down to, containing your defense to hopefully defend the rollout. And then what you could do if you really wanted to, this is like if they're not really running a lot of spacing switch, what you could do is you could vert hook. You could hook this guy to take away that backside return, at least early on. You could do that. Or you could just simply user that, as well. Or you could immediately switch stick here, like in this coverage. You could immediately switch stick to the middle third, and then you could get to this flat. So those are a couple different ways in which you could use this. But the big purpose and the why behind why we run this coverage show is when they're attacking with corner routes to the bunch side a lot, this would be a coverage show that you would want to utilize. It's going to take away pretty much any variation of them flooding the bunch side of the field. For this setup of a dollar coverage shell, what we're going to be doing is coming out an SS zone blitz, and we're going to have our auto flip off. Now, the big thing with this is what this coverage shell is going to accomplish is it's going to be kind of a traditional coverage shell, but it's a very conservative one. It's going to do a really good job against a lot of different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply slant our line to the right for the pressure. If we want to contain, we can. If we want to re-blitz one guy, we can. And then all we're going to do is we are going to put the slot corner here on a vertical hook. We're going to shade underneath, and then we're going to put a deep half and a cloud flat. So this is a little bit more bend but don't break style. And if you want to, you could put a curl flat on the left side. The purpose of this, and then I normally will hook curl my user. The purpose of this coverage shell is this is more of a traditional cover through cloud. We're not outside 30ing this guy. He's a deep half. So we're normally being a little better position to not have to worry about seam streaks or anything like that. And the whole point, so what's the vulnerability to this? The vulnerability to this is really the flat to the right side. Again, you're going to call this coverage shell when you want to be more bend but don't break style. You don't want to give up the big play. This will do a pretty good job of containing the majority of what people want to do in this formation. It'll make them have to check it underneath. And also, if you don't want to shade underneath for those zones, you don't have to. You could leave the vert hook stock shaded as well. That would be totally fine. But this will do a pretty good job. The one weakness is, as you'll see right here, right? I can throw this quick flat, but we have other coverage shells that are going to do a better job of defending that. If you feel situationally like you need to shade that and turn that cloud into a hard flat, totally fine. Just realize you're then vulnerable to corner routes. So you can obviously adjust it however, but this is the basics of it. What I like about this coverage shell though is because it's more bend but don't break style, you'll do a pretty good job against this setup right here. Like you'll do an okay job. And basically the only main thing that's open, because these hooks will rise a little bit more, you'll be able to, kind of switch stick within these hooks and play pretty good defense, right? There's tight windows to be had, but it's pretty good overall. And like I said, the main point of it is really for bend but don't break. Now, the other thing with this is, let's say they ran like a corner route play, like a rollout play like this. Let me actually get into a real setup that you would see. So like if they did something like this, the reason I like this shell is the D-pap will do a little better job with a vert hook of guarding the seam streak. And then you'll also do an okay. Like, I really like this. I mean, just more of a back off defense almost. Like, give you your 5 yards. But, you know, we're going to do a good job. Like, this corner route, as you see, the cloud will guard that. So it takes away those short corner routes from, you know, different types of bunches. You're able to defend short corner routes. The window to throw the bigger corner route is actually relatively tight. It's not super open, but the flat is certainly open. So you have to realize that. But we have other coverage shells, of course, that are going to do a better job at defending the flats. And, you know, this coverage shell will do a really good job of defending something like this, right? You're still going to be in a good spot to defend this, because even though the vert hooks are, you know, even though we're not necessarily shading them down, and you certainly can. If you want to shade down the vert hooks, be my guest, okay? Situationally, you can. But you have 2 hook curls that can defend curl routes as well. So like a lot of people like curl route plays, these guys can defend that. And then also, it's a very simple switch stick, as you see here, to defend this. Very, very simple. So we're able to handle a lot of the mainstay combinations in a really simple way, which I like that about this. So let's say we wanted to run, you know, if you're running double curls, like this is actually a really good play this year, even though it looks kind of weird. The best way to defend this is to not shade. So don't shade those yellows down, just leave them default. And basically all you have to do here is switch stick onto the curl flat, or you could just put them in a hard flat. But you could do something like this, and you're going to be in a pretty good spot, right? You're in a pretty good spot. The one thing is the vert hook can sometimes go a little wonky. So just kind of, that's why I personally like to shade him most of the time, just because when you shade that vert hook down, you're never going to have to worry about where is he going to go. He's not going to match. So just keep that in mind when you're using vert hooks. It's just something you have to kind of be aware of. But shading down and then having this guy here, definitely not a bad formula. And if they are using like, you know, double curls, yes, the curls can threaten you, but you actually aren't in as bad of a position, because all you basically have to do here is just switch stick here, you know, and you're doing okay, right? So anyway, it can handle a lot of what people from Bunch like to do. This is my favorite coverage whenever I want to be a little bit more bend but don't break style of defense. I want to force you to have to check the ball underneath. This would be something that I would use. What do you do if they flip? What do you do if Bunch is not on the normal side that it would be on? What if you do if the ball's on the hash? What do you do, right? How do you handle that within this defense? So here's what I would say. You're just going to basically like quick adjust it. And I know it sounds straightforward, but it actually is pretty straightforward. Like auto flip off, you still want to have auto flip off for this, and you still want to be in that SS zone blitz. And all you're going to do is you're just going to slant your defensive line to the right, just like this. And then you're just going to take those coverage shells and you're going to flip them. So for example, let's say that I want to run the, you know, cover 3 one. Now it's a little bit different. There are a couple things that are slightly different. So number one, this opens up a really easy way to run this coverage shell right here. Very simple, right? Just do 2 hook curls just like this and just play your cover 3. Totally fine. You don't have to switch stick onto this guy. What I would do though is I would still switch stick onto the safety. So I would just switch stick onto the crossfield safety, as you see here, and kind of use him as my base user. Okay, so that's one slight change, is you are going to do your cover 3 buzz a little bit differently, but you're also able now to, you know, do something like this where we're going to drop this guy down in this area right here, and now we're going to play our cover 3 like this, for example, or you could do your Mabel coverage and kind of keep him in this general area here. And then you're still, now in this case, you would definitely still switch stick onto this guy. So this is really good for, you know, again, any kind of flood combination to that side. So you just switch stick here, run him into that position, and then you're playing your, you know, your contained defense that way. And then if you want to run your base deal, you could just do a shaded underneath. You're going to do a third, a deep half, a vert hook, and then you're going to do a cloud flat. Now, what I would do when I'm running something like this is I would probably come over here, put my user in a hook, and then if you want to put a curl flat, you certainly can do that. Just kind of a bend but don't break shell. That's really good out of this defense. So there's some simple little things that are going to change, of course, but in general, the defense is pretty much the same if they flip. It's just a matter of, you putting your guy in position to, where your user wants to be. If you want a user over in this area right here, which is totally fine, then, that just means that your cover 3 buzz would look something like this. But let's say you're over here and you want a user like this, then you could do this right here. And now we're in the same basic thing. And all we're doing is running this guy into position. And we have those 2 hooks that are going to do a really good job against the majority of things that people want to do. This coverage defense is going to be designed for bunch tight end, and it's out of the SS zone blitz. This is going to be when the bunch is to the left side of the field. Primarily, you can obviously adapt it if they flip it, but this is kind of the base setup for it. Just make sure that you have auto flip defense play call off, and we're good to rock. So my base coverage for bunch tight end specifically, the thing with bunch tight end is really you want to kind of be out here. If you're over in this area, you're giving them a lot of numbers to run their RPO. So we don't want to do that unless they flip it. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to slant our line to the right to set up our blitz. And then we are going to craft our coverage shell. So what I like to do against bunch tight end, I think makes the most sense here, is we're just going to simply shade underneath, and we're going to put our safety here into a hook. Did not mean to show blitz there, but basically this is kind of my base coverage defense for bunch tight end. Now, the nice part about this is we don't really have to worry that much about the tight end streak with this cover 3. You're still going to be in a pretty good spot for this tight end streak to be able to play fine. So that to me is great. So again, basically here you are worried a little bit about the tight end streak. But what we're going to basically do is we're going to switch stick to the hook on the right side. So that's our main switch stick pattern in this defense. So we're going to start here, but we're going to basically run down, switch stick here, just like this. And the reason for that switch stick to that hook is to take away the tight end streak. So you're not really that worried about anything here to the left. What you're mainly worried about is a tight end streak to the right. So you have to kind of be mindful of that. And so how this would do, so you might ask, why would they run a tight end streak to that side? This is why. If they're running any kind of combination like this, you always have to have a plan for how you're going to defend this. And this, you're going to be in a really good spot to actually defend this, because this outside third will play pretty good against that crosser. So the main thing is you just got to make sure you're in position for the tight end streak. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch stick here, and we take that away for just a second, and then you see how that metal third is able to recover. That was actually not a greatest example, but let me show it one more time here. And I like to re-hook my user, okay? So if they run this, maybe. There we go. Need to put the crosser out there. Our main objective is to switch stick to the safety on the right side. So right here, boom, and then we're able to play pretty good. See how we can just kind of be in a good position to handle the majority of what they want to do from there. What's the main vulnerability of this coverage defense? I think it's always good to know what your main vulnerability is here. So number one, it's that tight end streak. And then number two, it's this flood combination to the left. So those are the two things you really want to watch for. So if they run the flood combination to the left, it typically is going to look like this. And so, the main way to defend this, we have a hard flat. We're going to just try to essentially midpoint it with this hard flat defender. So basically here, you're going to switch stick to this flat, and you're going to let this hook curl. This hook curl will actually carry this tight end drag for quite a while. So what I'll do is I'll switch stick to the safety, run him in his position, and then I'll switch stick back to the flat, and try to be able to kind of, again, just deter them as best I can. It's a little, again, a little difficult to show perfectly in practice mode, but effectively, you know, you're just trying to, again, just limit how open the windows are. So even if you wanted to put this guy in a curl flat stock with a shaded down yellow, the shaded down yellow will play pretty good. So you could just be here, switch stick there, and then switch stick to the hook curl to take that guy, and then you got to get to the running back. So that is the main vulnerability of the shell, that combination right there. Everything else, you're going to be in a pretty good spot to handle for the most part. Like if they run, even if they run like the high-low play, so it looks like this. If they run something like this, you're still in a pretty good spot because you can switch to this hook curl on the right side. So by switching here, you kind of muddy up what they want to throw. And that's the idea with this defense. This coverage is designed to stop any kind of flooding concept from a bunch tight end type of formation. And this is going to be out of the SS blitz. Make sure your auto flip is off. So what we're going to do with this defense now is we're going to show you how to slow down any kind of flood combination from the bunch side of the formation. So what we're going to do is we're going to slant our defensive line to the right-hand side. We're then going to middle third our safety on the tight end side. We're going to outside third this safety over here. And then typically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shade underneath, but you are going to have to effectively like recreate things. So what I like to do here, just to keep it pretty straightforward, is I do like to hook curl my user. I'm going to basically give you the seam on the right side to the running back if you want to take it. And then I'm going to have a hard flat on my outside corner, and I'm going to have a curl flat, and I'm going to stem that curl flat up at least once. You could stem that twice, or you could just put a 20-yard curl flat on your zone drops. Either way. So what is open with this play, and what is this coverage actually designed to stop? So the main thing that this coverage is designed to defend is this coverage is designed to defend this play right here, any variation of this play. That's the whole point of this coverage. We are going to do a really good job of being able to defend this. I like to switch stick onto this flat, and as you see, you're in a really good spot. Now, there is a window that you want to be aware of when running this defense. So if we were to look at replay here, what you're going to see is there is a little window right here, as you can see, right in this pocket, right? It's a tight window, but there is a window to throw that. So how do we close that throwing lane? We have two choices. Either A, we could take our user and we could carry this longer. If we do that, then they probably throw this tight end drag or the running back. But B is we can also switch stick onto that backside safety. So the way that we're going to accomplish this is, again, we're going to middle third, outside third, shade underneath, okay? And then hard flat, curl flat, stem the curl flat up. So just like that. And our pattern here, right? We're going to switch stick to the safety and run him into position to be able to defend this. Now, if you want to, I'm going to give you a slight variation that you can do with this coverage shell in just a second that will help this even more. But it's basically here, boom, I got to get on this guy and I got to get him over the top. And then the hook curl, pretty good. The purple, pretty good, right? So the slight variation to this, user discretion advised, because like you need to be aware of what this opens up, but this is a good variation of the defense. It would basically be to, instead of running cover 3 on the right, run a cover 2. So a vert hook and a soft squat. The reason that's helpful is because if the tight end runs a streak, the vert hook will guard him, the soft squat will guard him. Like you're going to be fine against the tight end. The only thing you're vulnerable to is a crosser from the backside if you run this. But the vert hook is great for the running back route, helps kind of close the middle of the field a little bit more, and it's a perfect candidate to switch stick onto once you've ran the third into position. So again, here, run him into position, then switch stick here. And now you see that we're really doing a nice job against one of the most popular flood concepts in the game. So as you see here, Drag is covered. Now, again, my target switch is always going to be the safety generally in bunch tight end. And I run him into position. As you see, he's pretty much there. If you pass me that outside, the outside third will play it. And then you see that I'm able to get back onto this guy and play this. And then the last thing that we haven't even really addressed is this corner route, right? You see how the hard flat is a good job, kind of mid-pointing and then getting to the tight end. And then that stemmed up curl flat is going to do a really good job against the corner route. So this is one of my favorite go-to shells against bunch tight end. And it is quite a bit of adjustments, but they're all quick adjustments. You can actually do this extremely quick in this game. So just keep this in mind, right? But another variation of the same thing would just be to run a cloud, and then you can zone stem the cloud up one. You could do that as well. That might save you one step. But ultimately, I think, this is a really, really good way to play defense against bunch tight end, assuming that you will run this safety into position in this middle third. Now, I want to give you one other thing that you can do to kind of help this out a little bit. If you struggle with switch stick, which I have and still do and all that, we can all get better, right? But if you struggle to switch stick that, what you can do is you can just simply move the safety to the inside of the tight end just like this, and you can move this guy out here. What they're going to think you're doing is setting up RPO defense, right? But this just kind of makes it a little cleaner in terms of how we can actually get to play pretty good in case they run a seam streak. Now, you don't really have to run him, honestly, that bad. So you'll see here, right? Throw it, and he's in pretty good position to make a play. So here's what you're going to do if they flip their bunch tight ends. This is going to be taking a look specifically at a bunch tight end flipped and kind of how we can address this. So basically, we're going to kind of use the same coverage shells. We're just going to essentially flip them or tweak them slightly just because of the situation that obviously they've flipped their formation. So we're going to still be coming out in the strong safety zone blitz, and you still want to have auto flip off for this defense. What we're going to be doing is, as you can see here, bunch to the right. I need to move the ball to this hash because typically you're going to see bunch to the wide side of the field. Now, as you see here, again, just a little bit of a different alignment in terms of what we're able to do defensively. So what we're able to do is we're going to set up our blitz. We're going to slant our defensive line here to the right side. And you want to notice here that your user actually moves. So you're going to bring him back over so that you're, set up well to be able to stop the run and all of that. The one weakness of this is, as you can see, your bunch, you do want to kind of use her on the bunch side. So you can kind of choose where you want to be in terms of relationship to this. But generally speaking, I like to put my user kind of over in this area of the field. Now, what we're going to do as far as a coverage shell is a little bit easier to kind of adapt this. So all we're going to do is we're just going to take this safety on the right side. We're going to put him in a hook. We're going to shade our coverage underneath. And then we're going to bring this guy over here and put him in a hook. So as you see, this is just creating a cover 3 buzz type of look here pre-snap. And what we're going to do is we're going to immediately switch stick onto this safety, generally speaking. Now, again, what I like to do is we kind of move this guy out just a little bit. That'll help defend any kind of RPO that they might want to have. And then essentially you're just going to switch stick onto this hook or this deep third, and you're going to run him into position. The main purpose for that switch stick is to prevent any kind of like slot streak or anything like that. So if they were to run a combo like this, we're going to be in a pretty good spot. So again, you're just going to, at the snap, instantly switch stick here, and then bring this guy over to play this, and then you're going to be in a pretty good spot. So let me show you in instant replay kind of what exactly is going on. So if you take a look here at the replay, you're going to see that we immediately switch stick to this middle third, and we immediately start running him into position so that he doesn't get burned over the top. If you don't do this, he will get burned over the top easily, okay? And then on the backside, notice that we actually switch stick to the outside third to cut this crosser, and that's going to take that away. Then we have the 2 hooks underneath to defend the return route. And then on this outside route, you're basically bracketing this with 2 defenders. It's going to be a hard throw, and you're going to be in a pretty decent spot to stop it. Obviously, if they wanted to throw something on that play, the main thing that is open is really this combination right here. It would be to use a slot fade to get a little bit better of a pull on that player. And then they would use like a seam streak and then a backside Texas. So something like this would really be the main combo that they want to go to. Now, a way that we could kind of, again, use her over on this side and still be in a pretty good spot, what we could do is we could hook, or we could middle third this corner here. What I would do in this situation, when I'm middle third on the bunch side, I like to outside quarter that outside corner. He'll play corner routes significantly better, and you have the integrity because you have this guy in a third. And then on the left-hand side of the defense, again, you want to slant right so that you slant your defensive line to the right so you get the pressure. And then on the left-hand side of the defense here, we're just going to put a hook, and then we're going to shade our coverage underneath. I like to re-hook curl my user too, typically with this, but it's effectively going to look like this. And now, we're in a pretty good spot. It's going to be kind of hard for them to throw a tight end seam streak, like if they were to throw any of that. And then we're going to be in a pretty good spot to defend, a lot of different things here. You're able to just kind of stay down on this, switch here, and you're in a pretty good spot. Really, the only thing they have is a corner route on a good clear out. So the way that we're going to stop a flood combination like that, if we're really trying to stop that flood combination, we're still going to use our Mabel defense. And so the way that we set that up is we're going to slant our line to the right to set up the pressure. We're then going to outside third the safety on this side, and then we're going to put our guy in a hook. We're going to shade him underneath, and then we're going to essentially put a hard flat on the outside corner. We're going to put a curl flat on the slot corner, and we are going to stem that curl flat up at least once, if not twice. I really like to try to only have to stem it up once, but if you do have to stem it up twice, you have to stem it up twice. And you're actually in a pretty good spot here, honestly. The main thing that we're going to do is just like, before, we're going to switch stick onto the safety in the middle of the screen, run him into position, and then typically we're going to look to switch down to either the hard flat defender on the left or the hook curl, which is the user. So to snap the ball, we're going to switch stick here, run this guy into position, and then we're trying to get back onto the running back, as you can see right there. So obviously a little bit more difficult to show switch stick with two controllers, but that is really kind of the main strategy that you're going to employ in terms of defending any kind of like bunch flood type of combo to bunch tight inside, slant your line to the right, outside third this guy. If you wanted to, another little thing that you could do is you could shade underneath, and then you could put a cloud here, and then all you would have to do is to stem the cloud up one. That will typically stop this as well. You're basically just creating effectively a Mabel coverage on this left-hand side. So now this corner route won't clear the cloud flat really. So what you'll see here is if we were to run something like this, really the only thing we have to worry about is the seam streak. So switched here, and then as you see there, that corner route not super open. If they do want to throw that, like if they want to try to risk throwing that and they can really fit that in that tight window, all you need to do, literally all you need to do, is just use that stemmed up purple, and instead of stemming them up once, stem them up twice. So we'll show you that real quick. So we put the curl flat, and then we're going to stem him up twice so he's a little deeper. And then you have this guy in a hard flat. You're creating a nice bracket over there on the left side. And then if you wanted to get super adjusty, you could put a vert hook and a soft squat. What this does is it defends, the tight end really well. It's going to be hard to throw a corner route on that left side. And then that vert hook will defend that Texas route for a minute while your 3-rec or your hook is getting into position. So this makes it a little bit better specifically for this play. And this is one of the main plays that someone from a bunch tight end would run, but it's basically here, just run this guy in a position, switch stick back, and you see that we pretty much completely blanketed the entirety of that play. And then the only other thing that I was going to say as far as a bunch tight end style of defense that I do like is kind of your traditional bend but don't break defense. And the way that I like to get to this bend but don't break defense, it's really for something like this. Like it will make something like this really hard to run consistently. But essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to deep half this this safety here. As you can see, we're going to vert hook this slot corner. We're still going to shade or slant our line to the right. We're going to shade underneath, and we're going to cloud flat on this right-hand side here. And then what I typically like to do on the left side is I do normally end up leaving that hard flat just because they're unlikely to threaten me too much on that side. But if they are, I can always put a curl flat on that side. And then when I run it like this, I normally will put an outside quarter on the left, because if they do run any kind of like cross concept where they're doing like a 3-level flood the left side, this will do a really, really good job of defending it, because basically all you have to do, the quarter will defend it. All you have to do is kind of stay down on these other routes here. So as you see, this just plays it really, really, really well. So in general, those are just the simple steps that I use when I'm facing a bunch tight end to the opposite side that it normally would be on. These are kind of how I adapt the coverages when they flip the formation. This video is going to go over my base coverage that I like to use for trips tight end in Madden 26. And what we're going to be looking at here specifically is how we adapt the strong safety zone blitz for trips tight end based offenses. So what you want to do in your coach adjustments is just make sure that your auto flip defensive play call is set to off. That is really, really important for this defense. And then we are going to be coming out in SS zone blitz every single play. We're going to call it. And all we're going to do is we are going to slant our defensive line to the right-hand side of the screen. That is what's going to set up the blitzing aspect of this defense. We're going to send forward pretty consistently. And then as far as how I like to defend trips as a whole, as a base coverage, something that you can just pick up and pretty much play very, very simply against trips tight end is this. All we're going to do is we are simply going to take this safety on the right hand side and we're going to put him in a hook curl. But when I play trips, what I like to do is I like to hook curl my user. I'm then going to shade underneath. You want to do this in order. And then we're going to put that hook curl on that safety. So what that kind of does a little bit is it just makes him play just slightly deeper, be a little better against a tight end seam streak or anything like that. And you're pretty much good to go. This will be a pretty good trips defense because you're out here for any kind of bubble screen or run shoot. You're going to be in a pretty good position to be able to kind of handle some of the things they're going to want to do from that perspective. And then as far as coverage aspects, some of the main combos that you're going to see pretty much revolve around pretty much typically would be something like this right here, would be a pretty standard combo. And they're going to high-low your hook curl. What we're able to do with this defense is we're able to kind of sit in this area, and then we could switch stick to the middle third and be able to take the crosser just like that. So this defense is really simple, but it's actually really effective in terms of its capability to be able to defend trips tight end with some degree of consistency, because you are able to kind of just handle like the RPO, for example. If they try to hit you with an RPO, well, you're out here now and you can kind of midpoint it a little bit, make it hard for them to, be super, super consistent with it. Assuming that we are able to make a basic tackle, we're going to be in a pretty good spot. The other thing about this is just kind of the way the formation sets itself up. This hook curl right here on the right-hand side is a really, really good person to switch stick onto, depending on how they ultimately are going to go about it. So another trips combo that you'll see some variation of this right here, where they try to high-low you on the left-hand side. Again, we're able with this defense to kind of switch stick around. And so we can just, switch stick to that outside third. And normally that outside third will take that crosser anyway. So we're going to be in a pretty good spot against that. And then if they try to flood the trip side, typically you don't see a lot of that this year. But if you were to get like a trip side flood where they did like a backside, something with like a tight end in route or something like this, like you don't see this combo a ton, but it is something you want to be prepared for. So if they are trying to flood you to the trip side here, you're still going to be in a pretty good spot because of just where your positioning is. If you think about it, the main high-low here is that corner route, but I have this hook curl that will do a pretty good job, and they don't have a middle of the field clear out. So because they don't have a middle of the field clear out, I'm able to just kind of midpoint here, switch stick up to the third, and you see how it does a pretty decent job. I could also just carry the corner with my user, depending on how they want to attack there with their backside tight end. So for example, like let's say they did like this would be a combo that actually makes a little more sense here. Let me put the streak on there as a clear out, but essentially you have a little return route right there. I don't know what you would realistically do with the slot receiver. I think ultimately you get a lot of drags and you get like a curl, something like this, high-low the yellow zone. In general, we're still going to be in a pretty good spot because number one, the pressure should break it down enough to where like the return route's not really open and the tight end's on the right side. So that means that hook curl kind of handle that for a minute and then that third. So you don't really have to worry about that. What they'd have to do is use a couple streaks. But basically here, you're in a pretty good spot, as you can see, to kind of switch stick and bracket different things within this basic coverage. For this coverage out of the SS Zone Blitz, we are going to be using this to slow down trips tight end. What we're going to be doing, make sure you have auto flip off, just really important. Want to make sure we always mention that. We're going to come out in SS Zone Blitz, and it's going to look just like this, as you can see. Now, this is for trips to the left. I'll go over if they flip it later on. But basically what we're looking to do here is we're looking to essentially play good coverage on the right side, but really focus our efforts to the back end of the defense. So the way that we're going to accomplish this is it's going to look like a lot of adjustments, but it's actually not that many. So what we're basically looking to do here is we're still going to kind of be over here with our user, and you don't even really necessarily need to do a ton of shading, but what I like to do is basically vert hook the slot corner on the right side. So I'm going to vert hook him. I'm then going to shade underneath. From there, I'm going to hook curl my user, slant my D-line to the right so it looks like this, and then I'm going to turn this cover 3 into kind of like a type of cover 4. So we're going to outside quarter the outside corner on the left. We're going to inside quarter this safety. Now, this is specific to verticals. It's the main reason we're doing this is to attempt to slow down verticals. And then we're going to inside quarter this safety that's over the tight end. If you want to put him on a third, you could, but I do like the inside quarter. And then we're going to put a basic cloud flat here on the tight end side. So we have a shaded down vert hook, and then I rehook curl my user. So again, if they run like an RPO or something, I'm kind of over in this area. It's going to make this kind of a pain to be able to, just consistently have at least we're just over in this area, right? We're going to be okay. And then the other aspect of this is the thing with verticals is this route right here. I apologize. I forgot one part of the setup here. You do want to go ahead and, in my opinion, curl flat this guy. This will help kind of deter any kind of corner route or tight end crosser. He'll also reroute the streak, so it will give this quarter time to get into position. So really, really important. So as you see here, this is like a standard vertical setup that you see a lot. And you're going to see that this does a pretty good job for the most part of defending it. You're right in this throwing lane right here. So when you see verticals, in my opinion, you want to kind of get out in this area. But basically, pretty much stock, we do a really good job. Now, what is actually open if they run verticals, and how do you want to defend it? The main thing that is open if they run verticals is this crosser to the circle receiver. What I don't want you to do is try to user him with your user. I want you to switch stick to that defender. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to have this hook here that's going to play really good against the running back. We're kind of in this area. We see that they run that. We switched it to that quarter, as you see. We're able to take him, and then obviously, we're hoping the pressure gets home a little bit quicker there. So anyways, that is the primary way in which that is going to do a good job of defending verticals. And if you look in replay here, I'll just go over this real quick. So as you can see, this is a big threat on trip side in, but you get this nice reroute here that kind of slows him down. Is there a little window to fit it between 3 players? Yeah, there is, but right about here, you see how that quarter just takes over here, and he's going to basically be neutralized. On the backside, your angle route, you got a vert hook there to kind of take it away early, and then the hook curl should be taking it away later on in the play, and then the switch stick onto the quarter is going to do a really, really good job of being able to kind of handle one of the main combinations that you're going to see out of trip side in. So again, we just quarter both of these guys, and it just makes it a little bit easier in terms of play there. And then we have that curl flat and that hook curl where we're kind of fanning into this area. Another play that this is going to be really good for would be the good old-fashioned curl flat. This is a pretty popular play out of this formation. So the beauty of this is your curl flat will do a really good job. They basically have to check it down to the flat. The hooks will do a good job. And really all you're looking to do here, as you see, is you're just going to play that post. Everything else played pretty well within the coverage and within the play. And then, another play that you're going to have to be prepared to defend would be some variation of slant post like this, typically, is what you'll see. So with the 2 quarters, put that vert hook there. What's nice about the vert hook and cloud is they will take the slant pretty well. They'll play that return route a little late in the play. So all we're really looking to do here is we're just going to be in this area, and we're just going to switch stick to this guy and take that tight end post out of the equation. So we're able to handle the majority of plays that they want to get to from trips tight end with this very simple coverage shell. For this coverage shell against the trips tight end formation, we're going to be using the SS zone blitz at $1, and we are going to be auto flip off. Make sure you have that set up. Now, what we're going to be doing here is we are going to be creating what I call a roll coverage. We're going to be rolling our coverage. This is what I call it's a roll coverage, and basically it's like a trap type coverage. And when you think about the purpose of this coverage, it's really twofold. It's going to take away any corner route to the trip side pretty well. It's also going to do a decent job at kind of trapping verticals if they want to try to hit us with verticals. And you're going to be in a pretty good spot to kind of handle any standard trips combo. So what we're going to do is we're going to slant our defensive line here to the right-hand side. That's going to set up the pressure. And then we're going to essentially create this roll coverage. So the way that you create this roll coverage is we are going to put our slot corner here on the left on a vert hook. We're going to shade underneath. That's going to give us that hard flat on the right side. We're then going to middle third, the safety that is on the tight end side. We're going to deep half or outside third. That's up to you. The deep half normally does a good enough job in this year's game, so I like to stay with the deep half if I can. And then we're going to have this cloud flat underneath on this outside corner. And then as you see here, we're still giving the same look. We're still in a pretty good spot. This will do really good against the majority of ways that people want to get to the RPO. So this will be a little bit better of an RPO defense. The other thing that I like to do specifically with this defense here is I like to switch stick onto the middle third defender and basically run him into the middle of the field pretty much instantly. Then I'm looking to switch stick back down into this hook curl position so that I can play, any kind of crosser or anything like that. The main vulnerability to this formation, to this setup, is actually the slant post combination, because you don't really have your cover 2 on the right side. So the reason we're using this cover 3, and what I would also recommend, is outside quartering the tight inside corner. The reason we're using this is because this will do a really good job if they try to do any kind of like deep crosser play, anything really like this. And so again, if they're going to flood the trip side, typically it's going to look something like this right here. And then the tight end could be on a number of things, right? He could be on a deep in route. He could be on a deep curl route. But this is what it looks like. So again, what am I user trying to do? I'm just trying to kind of be here, get this guy in the middle of the field. And then if this guy doesn't have anything to do, I like to look for work with this outside player. Okay. That is a really, really key piece of the defense. So let's go ahead and jump into instant replay here and just take a look at how this coverage plays. So as you can see here, this cloud flat on the left side, it's going to do a really good job of rerouting the fade. And then he's in a pretty good position. Like if they throw the corner out on time, this cloud's going to do a really good job. This deep half's kind of closing on the ball. It's going to be a really tight throw for them to complete this corner route consistently. So I feel pretty decent about that against a corner route. Backside return route is going to be caged by those 2 yellow zones over the middle. And then this just leaves me with a lot of freedom in the middle of the field here, where I can kind of cover, if they're running like this deep post to the tight end, I could cover that. Or I can just switch off and look for work underneath with this outside third that doesn't really, or outside quarter that doesn't have anything necessarily to do. Now, as I said, the weakness of this defense is really slant post. And the reason why it's a weakness is because your vert hook will play this running back route a little bit. The cloud will play it a little bit, but it won't definitely take it away. And then the other thing here is the slant is definitely open. So how do you stop the slant on this play? What I would suggest, because we automatically want to switch stick to the middle third anyway, is you want to read it. And if you can bite on the slant, bite on it. So if I'm running a trips combo like this, you can kind of tell that it's a crosser before he actually, gets super into this. So you see him go like that, you can kind of cut down in this area, and you played pretty decent-ish defense, right? It's not wide open, but it's definitely something that, you just have to be mindful of. And then let's say they run a combo like this, where it's not super clear, like your tight end could technically be on a streak. And so you can't really switch to it like you would realistically want to, and we'll give you a look like this. Now, you don't have to really worry about the tight end on this. You have a lot of help in the middle of the field. The cloud flat will play it. Like, you don't really have to worry about the tight end. What you can also do here is you can kind of carry this guy a little bit like that, carry him to the flat, and now we're playing really, really good defense on a combo that is supposed to quote unquote beat us. So the other main vulnerability, honestly, to this, not a lot of people run this, but if they're a true trips player, they would run something like this. This is a oldie but a goodie. This is a good combo out of trips, still really good because it just attacks both yellow zones on both sides. And so this would be something that you would be giving up if you were to run this defense, because you don't really have a yellow zone there. So effectively, if you were here, you would basically just have to like guess essentially that they're going to run this, which you wouldn't run this coverage shell. But if they catch you off guard, you can just kind of read that and try to bite in there. And then you see, I mean, we're playing decent-ish coverage on that, but that is really the main thing that's left open is that right side seam area of the field. But in a lot of our other coverage shells, it's taken away. So what if they flip their trips, right? So these are kind of how to run strong safety zone blitz. If they were to flip their trips, and you would need to kind of adjust on the fly to that, or if they came out in just a different hash mark. So you still want to be an SS zone blitz, and in this case, you want to have auto flip defensive play call off. Okay, all you're going to do is you're going to come out in the play. You're going to slant your defensive line to the right side. As you see, the game kind of automatically puts your user where you would want him to be. And then you're basically okay-ish. What I would actually do with this one, just because trips tight end is a little bit of a trickier formation to defend, in my opinion, I would still go ahead and put your user in a hook, and I would still shade him underneath just like this. And then I would middle third this guy on the right side, and I would hook curl this guy on the left side. So it looks just like this. And we basically just flipped our coverage, and we've now created cover 3 buzz. We want that cover 3 buzz coming down on the tight end side, and we want this guy over the top just to protect us from any kind of seam streak that they might want to do on the side. Obviously, the major thing that is open in this play is the seam. But other than that, we're going to do a pretty good job. And it's really the seam to the left side. So if they're running the seam right here, like you're in that area, and then you can kind of like cut however you see fit based on how they're playing. But I think it makes most sense for you to use her on that tight end or on that trip side. And then, let's say they run, like a slant post combination, something like this. A lot of people from trips like to run. This will do a really good job against that because you have this hook coming down from depth. So again, you're going to hook curl your user, shade underneath, middle third, and then you're going to hook this tight end. And if you wanted to, you could also individually route or custom stem that hook up one. So now he'll play with a little bit more depth, and that'll be really good for like any kind of like tight end seam streak. You see, like it just does a decent job, right, of being able to kind of play that vertical threat of the formation. But in general, I still think just the cover 3 buzz aspect of this is really, really good. This is going to do a great job against a combination like this, for example, when they try to start getting the running back out of the backfield. This would be pretty good against this because all you basically need to do is switch stick onto the middle third and be in a really good position. So you see right here, right, we're in a really, really good position based off what they want to do. So that would be something that I would use. And then as far as like the kind of makeshift cover 6 type coverage that I like out of this one, the main purpose of this one is this will do a much better job against seam streaks. So like if you're getting any kind of like standard seam streaks, it's pretty good. What you're going to do is you're going to slant the D-line to the right. You're then going to inside quarter both of your safeties. I like the outside quarter, the outside, like the trip side, outside corner. And then from there, I vert hook the slot corner, shade underneath, re-hook curl my user, and then I'm going to have a cloud or a soft squat. So this is what it looks like. This is really good against seam streaks. And if you wanted to, you could put a curl flat here. But basically, you're in a great position to handle most of the seam streaks that they can do. You just have to make sure that you switch stick on that tight end side quarter if there is any kind of crosser. Now, if they were to run a combination like this, for example, where they really put some stress on you by putting that streak there, you're still not in that bad of a situation. And the reason why is because what you're able to do with your user here. So you see that the vertical routes are flooding from right to left. And so all I have to do here is I'm just going to be here. I see that he cuts, so I'm just going to cut him with that inside quarter. They're normally not going to replace that route with a backside post or anything like that. So that is one of the ways in which you can accomplish kind of using that combo. And then the last combo, or the last adjustment that I like to use in against trips tight end right now, is really this one. And this one, the whole purpose of this adjustment is really designed to kind of help handle any kind of like flood to the trip side. So the way that we would do that, we're just going to slant to the right. We're actually in a pretty good spot to be able to get to it. We're going to vert hook that slot corner that's on the trip side, shade underneath, and then we're going to cloud flat, and we're going to either deep half or outside third. I'm going to leave that up to you, how you want to defend it. I normally will actually outside third because all my other plays are doing a better job against seam streaks. But again, you could also deep half. But effectively, as you can see right here, we're going to do a pretty good job. And I'm just going to switch stick to this tight end in route with this middle third. And you see we played pretty decent defense overall. So that's how I like to handle when the trips tight end is actually flipped against this defense. This defense is going to show you how to stop the doubles flex wide close formation in Madden 26. And we're going to be auto flip off within our dollar defense here. And we're going to be in SS zone blitz. So the main thing that I like to do against doubles, and if we're talking about, specifically just defending this formation, I think it's relatively straightforward. I think a very easy way to kind of just pick up a defense and play it against this formation would be to do something like this. Now, this one's a little risky because you do have to, there's a switch stick involved, that component, but basically you're just going to slant your D-line to the right. You're going to shade your coverage underneath. You're then going to stand kind of over in this area because then it allows you to shoot the run. And then you're going to hook curl your user, and you're going to hook curl the safety that is opposite of your user. So it's essentially just a cover 3 buzz look. And this is really, really good coverage out of this. But what we're looking to do here is what's really important is we've got to get this middle third into this area of the field really quick after the snap of the ball. Because if we don't, and I'll just show you real quick, this formation is good because of this tight end seam streak right here. This throw is what you have to be mindful of, honestly, in this formation. Like, that's the biggest threat in this, especially in this year's game. Like, that's the biggest threat in the formation, in my opinion. So what we're going to do to basically slow it down is we are going to immediately, and I mean immediately, right? We're going to be here. As soon as we recognize it's a pass, we're going to immediately switch up to this player, run him into position, and then we're going to get back onto one of the hook curls. So essentially, it's going to look like this. I'm just trying to get this. It's hard with 2 controllers, but snap the ball, immediately get up there, take that away, and then we're going to be looking for work with this backside guy. Typically, what they're going to do if you're running this formation, like typical combo, there's basically 3 plays that essentially do the same thing. So the first one is this Y sail play, which does this, or they do this, okay? Those are the 2 aspects of that play. PA snag is essentially this, but a little bit deeper of an in route and then a corner route, okay? And then flood H post is basically this, right? So it's essentially the same play 3 different ways, right? If you think about like how they're actually going to get to it. So let's say that we're, running a defense and the defense looks something like this. What we're able to do against like any kind of flood combination, because we're running this hook here and we're going to run this guy into position to be able to make a play on the ball, all you really have to do here is you just have to essentially switch stick to the hook and carry the corner route. Because corner route's really the biggest threat here. So boom, you're just going to run this guy. And you see that we're playing pretty good. If you want to switch stick back to the yellow late, you can. I think that's a pretty hard throw to make in this game. But let's just take a look at how it looks in replay. So as you see here in replay, right, we switch sticked here. So once they see your users here, normally their eyes are going to progress to their corner. So, we're kind of down and in this area of the field. And then as you see, we switch stick over here to the backside hook. You could have got to the flat as well, but basically just take that corner right away. That's the biggest threat on the play. If they're going to realistically, if they're going to hit this throw late, that throw is going to be thrown about right here, which is relatively difficult to hit. And if you wanted to make that not be able to be hit, all you would need to do is just stem your hooks up slightly So what we would do is we'd still have this hook. I'd probably still shade down, but then I would take my user and I would individually adjust him to where I stemmed his zone up 1, or I could crossband him on the backside, because normally it's the backside guy that's running the route anyway. Those are a couple ways in which, because you're starting out here, so by starting out over here, oftentimes they're going to just look away from you, right, typically. And so they're going to throw the route, but they'll throw it a lot later. And I'll just actually use like a post this time. But essentially, right, snap the ball. I'm going to run him into position. I then take this corner. And you see that like those are fairly tight windows once you kind of run through the coverage itself. Flange post, honestly, is a little easier because I think it's a lot harder of a throw on that post. And I'm just trying to get to the tight end here. So again, just both of these hooks will play pretty good, and essentially just snap the ball, run this guy down, and then try to get back to the corner route. And we're in a pretty decent spot for the majority of what they want to accomplish offensively in this formation. The next coverage that I like to use for doubles flex Y off close, assuming we have our auto flip off and SS zone blitz, is we are going to try to slow down essentially the backs, like the corner routes on the right side. So I think that the best way to slow down these corner routes on the right side is really a couple different options, but I think this is ultimately the one that makes the most sense, and it'll slow down running back streaks and things like that, is to roll the coverage. So the way that I like to roll the coverage here is to slant my D-line here to the right to get our blitz to come in, and then on the right-hand side, we're going to vert hook this slot corner. We're going to shade underneath, and then what I'll typically do here can kind of do what you want, but what I like to do is I like to crossman the PA snag route, but you could also just leave the hook. And then on the top of the roof here, we're going to put a deep half or an outside third. Now, the reason why you might not want to put an outside third is because the outside third can sometimes get too far horizontal and can be bombed. So I like a deep half here. And then we're going to use a cloud. Now, what we're going to do with this cloud flat in this defense is you want to kind of be mindful of what they're actually doing. Like, do you need to switch stick onto it or not? That is kind of the big question here. That's why, like, sometimes I'll put this kind of man up here, or it just kind of depends a little bit. But essentially, if they're running this version of the offense right here, something like this, we're pretty fine. Like, all we need to do here, switch stick this guy, bring him back, and then basically use the post, and then we got it. Like, the play's backed. Okay. The major challenge to this is when they were to run something like Y sail. And the reason why is Y sail is not super open against your base coverages, like a base cover 3 or base cover 4. But against something like this, it can do some damage on. So the biggest thing is always running this middle third into position in case they are trying to hit a seam streak. So running him back. And then here, I would actually bring this outside third over the top, as you see right here. So let me just break this down in replay. This is why I prefer the outside third if you will switch stick onto the middle third. But effectively what happens is, as you can see here, the middle third, if I run him into position, the middle third can cover this player right here, okay? The player that then allows this outside third, as you see, to cover the tight end. And then what we're basically left with is this backside. Now, what's nice about Y sail is Y sail backside is not a post, it's a dig. It's a deep in route, okay? So what you could also do here is you could basically not set zone, you could not shade. So like if I wanted to not shade here, I would just put a curl flat on this left side like this. And then I created the same thing. I'm just not shading. When I don't shade, what you're going to see is that these stock yellow zones will get deep enough to guard Y sail. So effectively here, I'm going to switch stick, take that away. Now I'm able to switch onto the tight end, and then take a look at how much more depth the stock yellow zone on the left will get. If we back up here, you're going to see, like, look at that. It's pretty good depth, right? Can you throw the drag? Yeah, but it's a rally tackle situation. And then you see we're getting that nice pressure. So I think, that's an option. Another way to kind of get to the same basic thing would be to use zone stemming. So it would be to take your user, put him on like a mid read, and to stem him up. So individually stem him up one, that will guard normally, that will guard the Y sail in route. So if I go back to this here, you're going to be in pretty good shape against the short corner stuff. The deeper corner is really the one that you got to worry about. But as you see, the mid read gets enough depth to be able to handle that. So that's another option. And then if you do it like that, you also don't have to necessarily put this deep half here. Let me just stem this guy up one like this. So see, I don't even have to put him in a hook, but basically if I come back to Y sail, I got to make sure to switch stick off here, but switch this guy. And then I'm able to kind of play pretty good. Like you see how that 3-rec's kind of covering him just by stemming him back one. You could also put your hooks on 10 against this formation. This will also do a really good job. A lot of people like to run a combo. It's like it could be different variations, but it's essentially this. It's either like a tight end post, a running back streak, and like a return route or something like this. This is one variation of it. Another variation of it would be like a drag, like something like this. Another variation of it could be a tight end wheel with a crosser or a post, a return route, or a slot fade like this. Those are all different variations of the same basic thing. But essentially what this does by having this vert hook here is now you can't really throw the ball to the running back on the seam. And so you handle this pretty nicely. For the most part, assuming you don't switch stick on the middle third there, but in general, this is a nice shell that I like to go to against this formation to kind of defend the corner routes, especially that Y sail. If they're just abusing corner routes to the tight end side, I'll go to this. And then also if they ever, if I ever need a yellow zone on that right side for the running back or anything like that, this would be something that I would use. So I get a lot of questions about how do you stop 5 wide in Madden, and this is going to serve as my favorite 5 wide defense in the game. So this is out of strong safety blitz in dollar. We want to have auto flip off, and I don't have any zones drops set. Okay, all we're going to do is we're going to come out in it. We're going to slant our defensive line here to the right. That will create kind of a pressure style, a pressure look, if you will. And then what we're going to do is on this right-hand side of the screen, what I like to do is I like to leave these seam flats, and that's going to create a match concept. So what we're going to do is inside quarter, the blitzing safety. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you have to do on this, and you're going to be in a good spot. Essentially, you're going to roam the middle here, of course, and then effectively, you do not have to worry about this number 3 receiver in the trips if he goes on a vertical route. So if he runs a crosser, you don't have to worry about that. You're looking for the drag underneath of it. So I'm just going to call hike here, and you're going to see that this plays really, really well against most of what people are going to be doing against 5 wide. And I'll just show you in replay kind of what's practically happening in real time. So what you have here is these seam flats are going to do a really good job of matching number 2 if he goes vertical. So if they go vertical, this triggers a match of this player right here. Now, the one thing about this is sometimes he can get beat over the top. That's the purpose of the middle third. He'll kind of help top on a seam streak and just make it a hard throw. And then this inside quarter, he is actually going to match the inside trips receiver, the number 3 receiver. He'll match him if he goes on a vertical route, crossing route, corner route, any of that. He'll get a nice match, and that match coverage is hard to beat. So again, all you're doing is slanting your line to the right. You just quarter this guy, and then let's say they run like a corner route play, and they could get to it several different ways that they could get to the corner route play, but it's effectively if they do something like this, you're going to see that this does a really good job against it. You're going to see that this quarter is going to match down onto the tight end. He kind of drives on the route. A lot of times he'll actually be able to animate, and that could be a potential interception. So it's just a great way to use, kind of match coverage to handle a lot of what they want to do out of trips. Another combo that you might get out of this would be something like this, like essentially like a little drive post combination. You're going to be in a good spot against that. Again, the quarter will match this post. So you see he takes him. All I got to do is take this underneath route, and I'm in a pretty good shape. Another thing that you could do is if that number 2 receiver does not run a vertical route. So let's say they run like kind of what I just ran, but they might get to it a different way. Like they run like a crosser, an in route, like a zig, something like this, right? They run something like this where you read that this middle trips receiver does not go vertical. Just switch off the 3-rec and get onto the middle third. So what you see here, I'm just going to switch onto the middle third here, and that 3-rec will be able to play down. So another thing that I really like to do, honestly, when I'm playing trips is, if let's say I'm playing defense like this or whatever, if you wanted to be over in this area of the field, you could do that as well. And again, you just switch stick to the middle third, and you pretty much have all this room. A lot of times that seam flat won't get burnt, but it's just kind of nice to, if he does, right? Another combination that you might get is you might get like a flat, a zig. Like this is a pretty good, couple different ways to kind of get to it, but it's effectively something like this. Could be done a little bit different here. I'm trying to think what they practically see, but it's basically something like this. It might be a curl, but in general, right? Something like this here. And then, again, you go back to your basic thing. Well, now there's no real job for this quarter. So you're kind of usering, you're right in here, and then you just switch stick off, and now you're in a pretty good spot. And as you see, we play really, really good defense against 5 wide. Now, if they run a double seam streak to the left side, this is something you might see. Maybe they go crazy cross combo like this or something. That seam flat is the whole point. So the seam flat will do a really good job, and then the crosser gets matched across the field. So what you need to do is you actually need to carry this drag. So kind of like that. And then you see here, I'm kind of switch off. But that is probably the best play against this. But in general, this is going to do a good job for the most part against what most people like to do out of any kind of 5 wide formation. Here's how I like to shoot the run out of trips tight end with the dollar defense. What we're going to basically do is we're going to slant our D-line to the right. We're going to put our coverage shell on the field, and there's really 2 methods. So the first one is going to be when you're hovering behind the center, or behind the nose tackle. What I like to do is basically kind of hover just slightly to the running back side, just like this. At the snap of the ball, there's this little gap that's going to open up, and you're just going to shoot in, as you see right there. So I'll show that one more time. So again, you can put whatever coverage you want on the field, does not matter. But basically, you're just standing slightly to the right side of the running, like to the running back side of the formation, and then you're just going to let the guard kind of run himself out of the play, and you're going to be in a pretty good spot. Now, the one thing with this shoot is you are this is kind of like, I'm definitely wanting to stop the run here, so I'm not too worried about the RPO, but essentially you see, I can pretty much shoot this run in the backfield pretty regularly. Now, let's say I wanted to defend the run and the RPO and be pretty good against pass. Then I like to, against trips, I like to stand kind of more out on the trip side. So what you don't want to do is if you stand back here, the problem with standing back here is, as you see, it's a really easy block for that guard. And if they block you, like, that's it, man. Like the play is there's just so many yards to be had. So what I like to do is kind of essentially midpoint here. I don't want to get blocked by this guy. I do know that I have to immediately kind of run to the right. But by immediately running to the right there, you see there's that little spot right there where we can make that tackle. It's a hard tackle to make, but if you practice this will be pretty good for you, as you see. And then sometimes that DN will come free. It just kind of depends a little bit on what they're doing with their targeting. But, just move them up just a little bit. And then you see there, like, you're still in a position, even if you get blocked, to kind of play it. And, but anywho, let me see if I can go one more time. Okay. So safety zone. There you see. So a lot of times, like if your user gets blocked, there actually is a pickup. And then see here again. There we go. And we're able to make the tackle. So that's in general how I like to run. There's really 2 methods here. If you're a little bit more worried about the RPO, which, you have good reason to be because this RPO is really good. Another thing you could do is move this guy down like this. Right here, move this guy over the top like so, and then you're now in a position where you can really shoot the run and you can guard the RPO. Like you'll see here, like if I guard the RPO, plays pretty decent, and we're able to go. As far as stopping the RPO from this, the blocking on the RPO is not as good as the blocking from inside zone, so that's important. But basically, as far as stopping the RPO, all we're going to do here is trying to just bid point it. And I would just force them to hand the ball off, honestly, if I'm defending this RPO. Because the problem is in this game, like, the RPO is not, like, I would just do that. Like, I think it's just, you just need to basically, like, make them hold the ball for just a second, and then you're in a pretty good spot. So like, let's say I'm in here, how would I stop the RPO? I would actually switch stick to the flat, so, or the safety. So you'll see here, I say, oh, they're running RPO. I'm gonna switch stick to the right or to the left to try to get a numbers advantage. So if I was standing here, they run the RPO. I'm gonna switch stick, run down with that safety, as you see, let the game stop the inside zone. So just by that very little bit of stuff, you should be okay. Right? If they're really running the ball a lot, you could just run double mug, right? Because that's a pretty good run defense. And then if they're running like quarterback power or anything like that, this actually does a decent job against the quarterback runs. Of course, I say that and Mahomes somehow gets out of there. This will do a decent job against the quarterback runs because of the fact that your safety is in the run fit. So typically, you'll see here, if I just let the game stop it, it'll normally contain it. I don't know how he broke that tackle, but we're in position. We're in a pretty good position to be able to play it. Show it one more time here. Actually, that was inside zone. That's where trips tight end is good because it has so many runs, man. Let me show. Let me see if we can actually get this to stop the run. QB power. Do you see? Does a nice job for the most part. So, anywho, those are like the core mechanics to stopping the run out of dollar in this defense. To stop under center runs out of the dime through two or dollar defense, what I like to do is get into good old fashioned DB fire 2. All right. So all we're going to do here is we're just going to pinch our defensive line just like this. And then basically we're just going to kind of like walk these safeties into the box. It's going to do a decent job. If you want to show blitz your linebackers, I do think that can kind of help this run defense under center. But we're going to do a pretty good job against stretch. Like we're going to do a really good job against stretch because the formation is so spaced out, it's spread out, that it's kind of difficult for them to actually attack stretch with stretch to the left or right. And then what I like to do is kind of get right behind this DT so that I can kind of like fill the lanes. But as you see right there, like when we get right behind the nose tackle, it's hard for them to actually pick up our user and actually be able to block us. So I like to show blitz the linebackers because they kind of hide behind here. If you want to contain, you can. And when you contain, it'll walk that slot corner off the edge. This also will allow you, to like do some man ups. I like to man people up out of DB fire. Just kind of old school with it, but I just think that this is still a really decent, relevant run defense for people, and it forces them to have to pass the ball. The one thing runners don't want to do is they don't want to pass the ball because they don't make good reads, right? So we want to force them really with everything we can to get them to pass the ball. Now, the thing you got to watch out for is the dive, because the dive is obviously like the run of choice for a dollar look. And so the basics of dive here is I like to stand on this side and I'm going to shoot through this left gap here. So as you see, shoot through the left gap. It's a little tricky in practice mode because you can't really preset anything. But in game, what I will do, especially if they're running a lot of dive, is I will basically get my guy in position and then I will pull up the stump menu. So you hit left on the D-pad R1, and then I'm going to pre-hold down my left stick. That allows me to instantly shoot in. And as you see, I'm able to take away dive on that side. And then if they run dive to the left side, this should honestly be a significant advantage to me. So you see, I'm kind of right in here and I'm just going to shoot right into the gap. As you see, blown up for -2 yards. So this is going to do a pretty good job of handling the majority of under center runs that you will see. If they run like a power run, we're still going to be in a pretty good spot, but I would say, power runs are going to do okay. But again, if I do that preset thing, you see that I can just kind of shoot that back in the backfield just like that. And then if they run a power run toward my user side, you'll see here, if I'm kind of hovering this way, we're okay, right? We just got to make that tackle with the slot corner, but he's right there to stop it. So I feel pretty good about this. Now, if someone is really running the ball, like they are just constantly running the ball, go ahead and get into a little bit better of a run defense, like 3-4 odd or 6-1 or double mug or any of those other options, right? Because sometimes you can get gash and dollar in the run game. Like that's the whole point of them going down to a big formation like this, because sometimes dollar can struggle to stop something like this. But I feel like in this game, if you got them running the ball every play, Normally that's a good sign for you to be able to, just get into 6-1 or double mug. And normally you're going to be able to handle the majority of what they're doing here. But in general, I do still really like this run defense. I think that this run defense is really, really simple. But at the same time, it's actually really, really good here. If I see stretch, okay, I'm just not going to go down, and we're just going to scrape and stop the run. All right, really simple red zone defense here at $1. Now, again, if they're coming out in goal line, I probably wouldn't run $1. But if they're coming in bunch tight end, bunch X nasty, like a 3 wide receiver set, this is what I like to do down here in the red zone. So we're going to go with this play here, Tampa 2 drop, and we are going to send 3. So all you're going to do is you're going to show blitz your linebackers, and you are going to pinch your defensive line just like this. You see these crash out angles. We'll do a little bit in terms of containing. And then all we're going to do with this is we are simply going to shade our coverage underneath. We're going to take this middle linebacker right here, and we're going to put him in a middle third. We're going to put this guy into a curl flat, and we're going to user this guy, but we are going to still put him in a curl flat. So as you see here, what I'm doing is I'm creating a heavy box count. And then when I switch stick off, this guy's going to go to the curl flat. Now, you don't have to switch stick off this guy, but you have a 3 rec, you have 2 hook zones, you have 2 hard flats, and you have a curl flat and middle third. So if they try to run the ball, I like to stand on the running back side of the center. So as you see here, I'm standing on the running back side, and I'm pulling up the stunt menu. I'm holding down on the left stick. And as you see, this is a very easy gap shoot, right? We should be pretty good at being able to gap shoot the run on this left-hand side. Now, let's say, another formation that you will get a ton down here in the red zone is any kind of like bubble screen or anything like that. So you have to be ready for this. This is why I like to show blitz. And then essentially what we're going to get here, the way that I like to defend, let's say we get into a trips tight end type of look, I still like to shade underneath. I actually still like to put this curl flat out here. I don't think it's the end of the world. And then let's say it's trips tight end specifically. Then normally what I'll do is I'll take this linebacker just because I know it will help me guard the bubble and just man him up onto circle. I just think it really helps with the bubble screen. Now you have to be a little bit aware of that tight end post, but in general, this will help. And basically you're going to see right here that if I, kind of stand like so, and we'll be able to shoot the run. And then if they throw that flat or that man up is going to run out and he's going to play that defender. Or that receiver. So again, you see the gap shoot does a really good job for that. And then you see how this is what's nice. So you have this manned up, but you also have this curl flat kind of rolling over the top to help in case of any problem. And then as far as the bunch tight end RPO, it basically applies the same way. So like shading underneath, show blitzing your linebacker, take this safety, put him in a purple. You're in a pretty good spot. Like the bubble from bunch tight end is not going to even be as good as trips in this instance. And then if you wanted to, you could take this middle linebacker and man him up on the bubble screen. That would make it just, really, really good. If you were going to do that, what I would do here is I would middle third my user so that when I switch stick off of him, he'll be my deep middle defender. Because a lot of combos that people will run down here, you're going to get like flat, zig route, but one of the main things you're going to get here is you're going to get like double slants, something like this. So you have to just kind of be ready for that. I don't even think you honestly need to shade down. I just think the hard flats are important. So if you want to leave the stock yellow zones, you certainly can do that as well. But let's say I guess wrong. Oh, they pass, right? Now they're going to have to throw through all this traffic. And that's the whole point, right? So anyway, those are some of my simple red zone defense. I'll give you one other one that I do like down in the red zone, and that is just to hard flat both these outside guys. Basically shade down and put 2 inside quarters on the field, just like this. The inside quarters will help with curls. So if you're getting someone that wants to run a lot of curls, that's something that you could go to. And then you're still going to be in a pretty good position for your standard slant post. You'll see right here, we're in a pretty good spot, as you see, able to play pretty good. And those curl flats will help that as well. So those are some of my main shells down here. Another shell that I like is to use cloud flats on the outside, but they're pressed up. As you see here, they're pressed up clouds. And then what that allows us to do is it allows us to put an inside quarter into play here. And then this gives you even more flexibility to man up. But in general, I think for stopping the run, you're going to be in a pretty good spot to be able to shoot the run right there. It was actually a really bad shoot by me. But basically, show that one more time. If I'm like right in this little area, this is pretty consistent, as you can see right there.